Hi, Charles Cherney here with 5 tips for first-time buyers. And frankly, these tips, I think, can serve many buyers, even if they've bought before. So here we go. Number 5, get a handle on your current living situation. Likely, if you're a first-time buyer, you're renting. And so when does your lease agreement end? When are you searching in relation to your lease agreement? Do you have enough time to find a place to purchase and close on it and move in? Look, it's difficult to get the end of your lease agreement to line up with your closing date so you can move directly from your rental into your newly purchased home. So, you need to understand what flexibility you have with regard to the place you're renting. Will the landlord let you stay beyond your lease agreement on a month-to-month basis as a tenant at will? Or on the flip side, would your landlord allow you to exit your lease agreement early if you should find a place and close on it and be ready to move into it before the current lease that you're in ends? Sometimes a landlord will allow you to exit early if a replacement tenant can be found. Sometimes you can exit early if you agree to pay some sort of penalty for early termination. Sometimes a landlord will allow you to sublease. So you just need to understand your current living situation. Look, if you live with extended family, you have the luxury of moving when you're ready to and not be under the gun because you're not in a rental lease agreement. But you can't ignore the reality of your current living situation. You need to sort it out, develop as rich an understanding of it as possible. So as you enter into the search to buy, you know what your options are. Number 4 on the list is to get pre-approved. It's best to be pre-approved by a local lender, and your buyer's agent ought to be able to advise you as to a list of local lenders to consider. You're wanting to be pre-approved by just one of them, as it will hurt your credit score to get multiple pre-approvals by multiple lenders, because they each would need to do a credit check, and that could ding your score. Mind you, you're not obligated to get the loan from the lender that writes your pre-approval, but you do need to get pre-approved for a loan by one of them and have them generate a pre-approval letter. Part and parcel of getting pre-approved for a loan is developing an understanding of your price range. If you're pre-approved to buy up to $1 million with 20% down, that does not necessarily mean you're going to be looking for $1 million home if your budget includes line items for perhaps starting a family or vacation or a rainy day fund or whatever it might be that inform your understanding of your price range to purchase. And remember, it's not just the monthly mortgage payment. There are property taxes to pay and insurance. And if you're buying a condo fee. And then moving forward in time as a homeowner, you have to allocate a certain number of dollars for maintenance and upkeep. So you need to sort of sit down and think through what your price range truly is as part and parcel of the pre-approval journey. And too many people skip this step, right? They just get pre-approved. They see that number for what they're pre-approved for and think, that's it. That's the number I can look up to. It may well be, but before you arrive at that decision, sit down and do the hard work of sorting out your budget and what else you have in life that you need to pay for and what it's actually going to cost to be a homeowner. Many buyers forget that there's actually costs associated with establishing a loan to purchase a home. And so you'll want to review with the lender that's pre-approving you what it will cost to get the loan in place for the closing. So let's say it's a $500,000 condo and you're getting a loan for $400,000. You would ask your lender that wrote your pre-approval, what will it cost me to have the loan in place on the closing day for $400,000? What are the costs associated with establishing the loan so that you can factor that in to your total costs on the journey to taking home ownership? And again, there are additional costs on this journey, such as a home inspector for a home inspection and the fee paid to the home inspector. And in Massachusetts, which is a attorney-driven real estate state, you have to pay a buyer's real estate attorney, and then the lender will have an attorney, and there's a fee associated with that, which you pay. So in getting pre-approved, you want to have the lender help you develop an understanding of the line items that you're going to be wanting to factor in as you ponder the price range you're going to be searching in as you're in the process of being pre-approved. Number 3 on my list is to search for properties in your price range, right? So once you have finally identified the price range that you are going to be searching in, that is the price range you want to be searching for properties in. So let's say that you're pre-approved for up to $1 million. And after sitting down and crunching the numbers, you have decided to look at properties up to 850, then do that. Too often people get distracted by properties that are beyond their price range because they like them more, because they offer more of what they want. And it does you no good to fall in love with places you cannot afford to buy, or if you did pursue them and then did own them, then you're in a crunch financially and under a great deal of stress and strain. The happy buyers buy properties in their price range and make that work, right? So look at properties in your price range. Now, that doesn't mean something you love that's more won't come down in price. You can track it. And, obviously, if you can't help yourself and look at it anyway, just know what it entails to purchase a property if it exceeds your comfort zone and price range, right? You did the homework for a reason. So hold yourself accountable for decisions you're making. Number 2 on the list is to embrace compromise. You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you can get what you need. This means you need to calibrate your must-have list and your wish list, right? So if you've decided that garage parking is what you want, right? And the 10 listings currently for sale that offer parking, 9 of them feature off-street parking, but not in a garage, and just 1 of them features garage parking. We can appreciate that if you're amenable to considering off-street parking, but not a garage, you've gone from 1 choice to 10. So it's just an example of how you need to embrace compromise in your search. There's no such thing as a perfect property. Even if money is no object, you still have to decide among the properties for sale what ones you'll consider and what compromises you're willing to make. A classic example of this might be that someone is determined in their price range to get a 3-bedroom, and they're frustrated because there aren't many 3 bedrooms in their price range. But lo and behold, when they consider 2-bedroom properties in their price range or 2-bedroom plus study, they see a boatload of options, right? So if that's a desire, a wish list, but not a must-have to have the 3rd bedroom, you open up all new sorts of opportunities if you consider a 2 or 2 plus. Or if you've been thinking that you want to be in Cambridge, but then suddenly when you realize that if you're open to Somerville, the number of opportunities you have to consider greatly expands, you realize, oh, maybe I need to embrace compromise and consider a different location. Maybe it's adjacent to my preferred area. And wouldn't you know, when I look into it, I discover I like it as much as my preferred area. And so you're embracing that compromise to arrive at success in your search instead of be looking forever and never succeeding. And the number 1 on the list of tips for first-time buyers is ask questions when you don't know and feel uncertain, or I should say ask questions when you don't know or you feel uncertain. A lot of people in our marketplace that we are associated with in their search to buy as first-time buyers are super smart people. They have a PhD or they work at a flying high-tech company and they've had nothing but success as a student or as a professional. But when they get into the search to buy, they're encountering things they don't know or understand, and they almost feel like I shouldn't ask questions because it's going to reflect poorly on me. In fact, the opposite is the case. If you don't know or you don't understand, then you ought to ask your buyer's agent or your lender or your real estate attorney or anyone and everyone that's part and parcel of your team in this process the question that you don't know the answer to. So as an example of this, what is the down payment? Many people think the down payment is the amount that's in escrow at deposit at the time the purchase and sale is signed. But in fact, that's not the down payment. The down payment is the amount you are not mortgaging, okay? So let's imagine that you're buying a condo for $500,000 and you're putting down 20% or $100,000. So $100,000 is the down payment, but when you sign the purchase and sale, just 5% of 500,000 or 25,000 is due as a deposit. So that is the deposit due at P&S, but the total down payment is the amount you're not mortgaging. In this example, 100,000. So you'd be bringing the additional 75,000 to the closing to equal your 20% down payment. So it's just a simple example. Or a buyer may not understand the difference between forced hot water heat and forced hot air heat, or gas heat and electric heat, or tankless hot waters. years and hot water heated in a tank. They may not know what an insulated window is or the different kinds of roofing. All questions in a home search are fair, and you shouldn't be embarrassed to ask them. When the lender gives you the costs associated with establishing the loan and goes through them, if you don't understand a line item, just ask your lender. He will explain it. He is a professional, and your buyer's agent is a professional, and they can answer your questions. And quite frankly, if there's a question about a specific property and you're uncertain because you don't know about, say, the condo fee and what it includes and how the association is managed and what the history of special assessments is, ask these questions. And in fact, if you're working with a good buyer's agent, many of the questions that you desire answers to will be asked on your behalf by your buyer's agent so that you can get to the bottom of things. Look, there's no such thing as 100% certainty in a search, but you do want to avoid ignoring those questions that you desire answers to, because getting answers to them will increase your certainty and confidence and your ability to make an informed decision to proceed forward. And again, it's not just the offer and making an offer. Questions follow the offer, right? In terms of, when do I set up my insurance, right? When do I have to get my lender decided on in order to be in compliance with my accepted offer, right? What happens if I need a mortgage commitment extension? What happens X? What happens Y? What happens Z? There's questions that keep coming up. And if you're in the hands of a good buyer's agent as your guide and your team of advisors on this journey, you can get those answers for the most part. Every now and then there'll be a question no one can answer because life is such. But again, you're going to feel better on this journey if you pursue asking questions when you don't know or feel uncertain. My name is Charles Cherney. Myself and my business partner, Maggie D, welcome the opportunity to be your guides on your search to buy your first home or any home that you're looking to buy. Reach out by text, telephone, or email if we can be of service and answer your questions. Be in touch. Thanks.